Hello, everybody. This is Joe Firestone for Empowering Democracy. And the topic of this stream is the Jamie Mcleod-Skinner affair. So, Jamie Mcleod-Skinner was the Democratic candidate for Congress in the 5th Congressional District, in Oregon. She was a strong candidate who won a decisive victory over Kurt Schrader in the primary in the 5th. And she was running against a candidate who was strong financially. Her Republican opponent was Lori Chavez de Reamer, who is a quite wealthy woman. Okay, Jamie was beaten in the end, I believe, by about 3 points or so. Okay, in any event, there appeared an article in Common Dreams. The headline was Democratic Leaders Rebuked for Abandoning Oregon's Mcleod-Skinner. This article was by Kenny Stansel on November 14th. I'll go through it. Progressives criticizing. Well, let me share it with you first. I don't think I've really shared it yet. So here we are. Share screen. By the way, this is my first news update for today. This piece was by Kenny Stansel on November 14th. Progressives are criticizing Democratic leaders for withholding support from Jamie Mcleod-Skinner, a left-leaning candidate for Oregon's 5th Congressional District, whose close loss to her millionaire Republican opponent, Lori Chavez de Reamer, could cost the party a chance to retain control of the House. Well, there were a few races like this that would have helped. It certainly contributed to the Democrats losing control of the House. Looks like the final margin at this point is probably going to be 220 to 215 or 221 to 214. So if Jamie had won, then perhaps the final margin would be 220 to 215. So it wasn't on her alone that the victory for the Democrats hung. There were other close races which the Democrats should have won, but did not. The Oregon 5th, by the way, has been a Democratic district for a long time under Kurt Schrader. Anyway, going on with the article, quote, this seat could have made the majority, but the National Democratic Political Action Committees walked away and left Jamie to twist in the wind, unquote. Working Families Party National Campaigns Director Joe Dinkins said Monday in a statement that the GOP knew it was competitive and their spending showed it. The Working Families Party did its best to fill the gap unquote. The Working Families Party spent $1 million on behalf of Mcleod-Skinner and was her biggest independent supporter in the primary and in the final month of the general election. As The Intercept reported Friday, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee invested nearly $2 million to help Jamie win in Central Oregon, but the ads it funded, quote, came off the air in the final weeks, and the leadership aligned Super Political Action Committee, House Majority PAC, made the eyebrow-raising move to triage the race altogether, unquote. Republicans, on the other hand, treated the race in Oregon's 5th District as a toss-up it clearly was, the outlet noted. Quote, they spent nearly $8 million in total, spending that ballooned all the way through Election Day. Mcleod-Skinner, an emergency response coordinator backed by several progressive lawmakers and groups, made headlines when she soundly defeated U.S. Representative Kurt Schrader, a right-wing Democrat who voted against his party's coronavirus relief package and helped to derail the Build Back Better Act in the May primary. Even though Schrader, whom Mcleod-Skinner described as, quote, the Joe Manchin of the House, unquote, played a key role in killing a more far-reaching iteration of his party's reconciliation package, President Joe Biden endorsed the 7-term incumbent over his popular progressive challenger in the primary. Schrader, who also enjoyed a fundraising advantage and benefited from a deployment of $800,000 worth of attack ads funded by mainstream Democrats, a super PAC bankrolled by billionaire LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, refused to endorse Mcleod-Skinner in the general election. Here's a tweet from Alex Salmon, who's a writer for the American Prospect. The DCCC and House Majority PAC abandoned this race, allowing Mcleod-Skinner to get outspent by millions in the final weeks. Kurt Schrader, the outgoing blue dog in the seat and Biden endorsee, refused to endorse Mcleod-Skinner, the Dem candidate, a pure establishment own goal. And Dave Wasserman, said, I've seen enough. Lori Chavez DeReamer defeats Jamie Mcleod-Skinner in the Oregon 5, a critical GOP pickup. As journalist Ryan Grimm pointed out last week, Democratic leaders claimed that Mcleod-Skinner was too progressive and had no shot. They opted instead to spend more money on DCCC chair Sean Patrick Maloney, who went on to lose after forcing his way into a newly drawn district at the expense of Representative Mondaire Jones, Democrat of New York, and the party more broadly. Although Democrats still have an outside chance of retaining control of the House, Mcleod-Skinner's tightly contested race was among those the party needed to win to keep its majority. Now, to understand what happened here, they made a decision not to support Jamie, but to spend money on Sean Patrick Maloney, who went into the wrong district, instead, forcing Mondaire Jones out. So, what might have been 3 seats that would have been won by Democrats instead turned into 3 losses. because Mondaire Jones probably would have been reelected to his district, even though it was changed by redistricting. In that district, Jones was popular and had been a very good congressman in the short time he was in the Congress. Sean Patrick Maloney had a pretty good district to run in. He forced his way into a newly drawn district because he was worried, and he somehow thought if he ran in a Democratic +9 district, it would be much safer than running into a Democrat +7 district. So he abandoned his own district where he was known and he was an incumbent. If he had stayed in that district, he probably would have had a better chance to win. Mondaire Jones would have won. The DCCC might have spent that money on Jamie Mcleod-Skinner. 3 seats out the window because the DCCC, Sean Patrick Maloney himself, made stupid decisions. Stupid. So that's what happens when you select for DCCC chair someone selfish in pursuit of his own interest, who is also lacking in the ability to plan and probably not strong when it comes to counting numbers. Seems to me the Democrats need someone like Katie Porter as the DCCC chair. Katie can count, and she can calculate, and she has a sense of integrity. So 3 seats were lost because of these decisions. So here's Ryan Grimm of The Intercept and Breaking Points. Dems walked away from the Oregon 5th after Jamie Mcleod-Skinner beat right-wing Dem Kurt Schrader. They said she was too progressive and had no shot, and spent money of Sean Patrick Maloney instead. Spent money on Sean Patrick Maloney. That's obviously a typo. Instead, her race is incredibly close, and they need it for the majority. They needed Sean Patrick Maloney's seat also for the majority, and they needed Mondaire Jones' seat also for the majority. If those 3 seats had swung the other way, then the Republicans would still have had the majority in the House, but perhaps that majority would have been only 218 to 217, a considerably more dicey matter. Now, that doesn't speak to any other stupid decisions that Sean Patrick Maloney may have made. David Beard, Dems' path to a House majority in good shape in 209 seats. Ahead in the Washington 3rd, 8th, and the California 7th. Ahead in the Washington 3rd and 8th, and the California 47th and 49th. Tenuously ahead in the Arizona 1st, the California 41st, the Colorado 3rd, adds up to 216. They need to come from behind in 2 out of CA 13, less than a point down, but CA 22, the Oregon 5th, both tougher. Journalist Austin Alman contrasted Democratic leaders' support for Mcleod-Skinner with their substantial backing of Chris Deluzio, a progressive candidate who won Pennsylvania's 17th congressional district. One got national support and won by 6. The other was defined by national pundits and unanswered ads. And Hannah Trudeau said, "Not sure about this. Schrader wasn't very popular. And the counter argument is that National Dems didn't put dollars into this race after he lost the primary." I think the more interesting cue is what could have been if DCCC types put muscle behind the progressive, even holding their nose. The decision to primary a popular blue dog Dem could end up costing Dems the majority. And here's another tweet from Austin Alman. "We have a test case. At Christopher, Pennsylvania, was a former Bernie DNC delegate who ran as a stone cold economic populist in hashtag Pennsylvania 17th, much like Mcleod-Skinner did." Well, I think Mcleod-Skinner was defined more by identity politics than economics. She did run, on economics too. One got national support and won by 6. The other was defined by national pundits and unanswered ads. And there's a picture of Chris DeLuzio and an article from the American Prospect. That was a good article. I covered it at the time. The populist pugilist vying to replace Connor Lamb. And Chris DeLuzio did win, of course, by 6 points and promises to be a popular congressman for some time. Oregon's 5th district represents a massive wasted opportunity for Democrats, and it's not the only one, unquote. Allman argued, quote, "It reopens old wounds around the party, jettisoning progressives based on very weak kinds of rationales," unquote. Quote, "Dems had an overarching money crunch, no doubt, but it's hard to defend their race-by-race decisions," unquote. He added, quote again, "If you weren't a hand-picked moderate suburbanite, you largely struggled," unquote. In the Intercept, Alman and Grimm noted Oregon's 5th was in the top 20 when it came to spending by House Republicans, while Mcleod-Skinner was near the bottom for Democrats when it came to competitive races. The Republicans also had more money to work with. The Congressional Leadership Fund, the House Republican Super PAC, had some $250 million to parcel out across the country, while the Democrat Super PAC spent around $140 million. What does this say? It says that the money was essential in this race. The money coming from the Congressional Leadership Fund, the House Republican Super PAC, $250 million to the Democrat Super PAC, spent around $140 million. But apart from the sheer volume of money, of course, the Super PACs frequently spend on establishment candidates and have a bias against progressive candidates, as you see here. The role of money in politics here was clearly against the progressive Democrats. Quote, "The data just wasn't there on that race," quote, argued one Democratic operative involved in the race. Quote, "Portland was also an incredibly expensive media market. I don't know where you have pulled the money from," unquote. Of course, the cheaper Bend media market in the southeastern part of the district also went untapped. What that means, of course, is that the Bend media market There were no ads running that. If your argument is Portland was an incredibly expensive media market and you have a shortage of money, then why not go to the cheaper media market and try to get some votes in there? But the big point here is, you could get into very fine details and point out why she lost this particular race. But the truth is, if the dump the corruption litmus test was used in this particular race, then Jamie Mcleod-Skinner would have won going away. Going away. She would have won going away even if the Democrats' super PAC had decided to spend a whole bunch of money on Chavez the Reamer. Let me just double check, see if that's her name. Yes, it was Lori Chavez the Reamer. Even if the Democrats had spent tons of money on her along with the Republicans in an effort to shore up the Uni Party, if everybody got behind the litmus test we suggest, the litmus test that you vote against anyone taking big money or being supported by it, then Jamie Mcleod-Skinner would have won. We need to deal the money out of these races. If we don't, we will always get inferior candidates bought by the money. While a handful of the progressive organizations, I'm now quoting once again from The Intercept and Allman and Grimm, while a handful of progressive organizations stepped in to alleviate some of the massive financial disparity, including a $1 million investment from Working Families Party that stretched across the primary and general, the limited resources meant Jamie Mcleod-Skinner, who has long declined support from corporate-funded PACs, was left with an outside spending deficit of over $5 million. The only way to beat a deficit like that, folks, only way to do that is for people to vote against the money. Vote against the money. Vote against the candidate getting the money. The progressive groups who work to close that gap have been sharp in their criticism. While they pumped last-minute money into the DCCC's chair's losing race in New York, indivisible national political director Danny Negrete told The Intercept, quote, Jamie has been holding on entirely based on her strength as a candidate and her grassroots support. That is as it should be. As Common Dreams reported last week, several progressive champions, including Working Families Party-backed candidates Greg Casar and Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Jasmine Crockett of Texas doesn't look too progressive, by the way, not very progressive compared to others. Also mentioned is Delia Ramirez of Illinois, a bona fide progressive, Summer Lee of Pennsylvania. Then there's Maxwell Frost of Florida, that some people have some doubts about, and Becca Balint of Vermont are heading to the U.S. House. We could have had Jamie Mcleod-Skinner heading to it as well. We could have had that done either because the Democrats, the DCCC, had made the right decision in her case, or if we all adopted the litmus test as a collective movement across the country, then it wouldn't have mattered what the DCCC did. It wouldn't have mattered whether they took their money raised from the rich and from corporations and from PACs and from super PACs. It wouldn't have mattered because Jamie would have won anyway. Quote, Jamie was an excellent candidate, said Dinkin. And quote again, the Democratic leaders should be asking themselves why they couldn't see what Democrats in the district so clearly could. Obviously, it's because Democratic leaders are wearing money blinders, blinders that say nothing should fundamentally change and we should keep on taking money from the wealthy and the super rich and the rich, and we should abandon the interests of working people in the middle class in favor of their interests, and we should continue in that way to lose quite frequently rather than blowing the entirely corrupt party of the Republicans out of the water when it comes to elections. So that's my commentary on Jamie Mcleod-Skinner. Hello, Kay. How are you? I'm glad to see you here. I've got a few minutes left if anybody wants to ask questions. There we go. Anyway, it's a fine day here in the D.C. area. The sun is shining brightly. Probably a little cold. We have had some signs of winter in spite of the global warming. So there's that. Okay, I will be. Hi, Eric Albloss. It's been quite some time. It's a pleasure to see you. Okay, I'll be on again. Oh, by the way, I should say, I have a Patreon account at patreon.com/Joe Firestone or Joe_Firestone. Sorry about that. And my Buy Me a Coffee account is at buymeacoffee.com/Joe.Firestone. I'd appreciate it if you visit those accounts every once in a while. I also want to say that I'll be on again at roughly 4:30 today in the 4 to 5 o'clock in that range. Okay, I'll be on to talk about the Karen Bass win. Of course, I'm glad she won, but we have to look at this from the lens of the idea of dump the corruption. And that produces a different perspective for viewing the victory and for evaluating how much her victory has probably cost us. So I'll see you then at 4:30 to discuss that. And I'll also be on later today at 9 o'clock for a third update. And then I'll be talking about empowering democracy the fifth column. We got some more information on the fifth column today. That is the fifth column inside of the Democratic Party. And I'll be talking about that at 9 p.m. this evening. So until then, have a great afternoon and have a great time in the early evening. Okay, and Arakel, thank you for dropping in. Have a great day. And Kay, you have a great day too.